The stench of bleach and betrayal hit harder than the metal that crushed Jin-Ho's spine. He woke to find his legs dead. His wife, already gone. The divorce papers arrived before the morphine wore off. Signed, sealed. Abandoned like trash she couldn't be bothered to recycle. Hygiene didn't even have the decency to show her face. Just a lawyer's cold voice on speakerphone. Mrs. Kim requests no further contact. She's moving on. Moving on. While he couldn't even move his toes. The hospital room became his prison. Tubes snaked into his arms like accusations. Every beep of the monitor reminded him. Alive but abandoned. Alive but worthless. His phone, 17 missed calls before the accident, now sat silent for days. Business partners vanished. Friends stopped texting. Even his own family went quiet, as if paralysis was contagious. Mr. Jin-Ho, the discharge nurse said, clipboard in hand, eyes avoiding his. Your wife cleared out the apartment. Took everything. The landlord says you have 2 weeks. 2 weeks. To do what? Crawl? He wanted to scream, but his throat was too raw from the breathing tube. Instead, he just stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the stains, wondering which would kill him first. The bedsores or the crushing realization that the woman who'd promised, in sickness and in health, had meant it as a limited-time offer. The first week after waking was psychological warfare. Hospital staff whispered when they thought he couldn't hear. Such a shame. So young. His wife really just left. Their pity was worse than the pain. At least pain was honest. Jin-Ho's business partner, Min-jae, visited once. Stood in the doorway like Jin-Ho's condition might leap across the room and infect him. Listen, man, we need to discuss the company. You're obviously not able to fulfill your duties anymore. The board wants to buy out your shares. At a discount, considering the circumstances. Considering the circumstances? Jin-Ho's voice was gravel. You mean considering I'm paralyzed and my wife stole everything? Min-jae had the decency to look uncomfortable. For about 3 seconds. Business is business, Jin-Ho. You understand. He understood perfectly. Vultures circled the moment you showed weakness. The buyout offer was insulting. 30 cents on the dollar for shares worth millions. But what choice did he have? He couldn't work. Couldn't walk. Couldn't even sign the papers without his hand shaking so badly the pen slipped. I'll need time to review with a lawyer, Jin-Ho managed. Min-jae's smile was shark-like. Of course. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer expires and we proceed with emergency removal protocols. Medical incapacity and all that. They were going to take everything. Just like hygiene had. That night, Jin-Ho didn't sleep. He stared at his legs. Foreign objects attached to his body, refusing to obey. He tried wiggling his toes. Nothing. Tried bending his knee. Nothing. His entire lower body had become a tomb, and he was buried alive inside it. The darkness whispered seductive things. How easy it would be to just stop. Stop fighting. Stop hoping. Stop enduring the endless parade of people who looked at him with pity or greed or disgust. His hand drifted toward the call button. Then past it. Toward the 4-line. 1 pull. That's all it would take. Don't even think about it. The voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Jin-Ho's head snapped toward the doorway. She stood backlit by the hallway fluorescence, tall, dark-skinned, with eyes that didn't flinch at the sight of him. This broken, abandoned shell of a man. She wasn't hospital staff. Her clothes were too casual, too vibrant. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd walked through hell and come out the other side with her spine intact. Who are you? Jin-Ho's voice was barely a whisper. Naomi, your new caregiver. She stepped into the room, setting down a duffel bag with practiced ease. And before you start with the whole, I don't need help routine, save it. I've heard every version of that speech. None of them work on me. Something in her tone, not cruel, but unflinching, cut through Jin-Ho's fog of self-pity. I didn't request a caregiver, he said. Hospital did. Someone has to make sure you don't do something stupid. Her eyes flicked to his hand, still hovering near the 4. Like that. Jin-Ho jerked his hand back as if burned. You don't know anything about me. I know your wife left while you were unconscious. I know she took everything that wasn't bolted down. I know your business partners are circling like sharks. I know you've been lying here for 6 days contemplating whether living is worth the effort. Naomi pulled up a chair, sitting so their eyes were level. What I don't know is whether you're actually going to fight, or if you're just going to prove everyone right. Prove them right about what? That you were only strong when life was easy, that the moment things got hard you folded. Naomi leaned back, studying him with unsettling intensity. Rich, powerful men talk a big game about resilience. But I've watched plenty of them crumble the second their privilege gets stripped away. So which one are you? The challenge hung in the air like a dare. And something in Jin-Ho, buried deep under the despair and self-pity, stirred. Anger. Pure molten anger at being dismissed. At being written off. Fine, he ground out. What's your plan? Naomi's smile was sharp. First, we keep you breathing. Then, we make you dangerous again. The next morning began at 5 a.m. Jin-Ho woke to Naomi yanking open the curtains, flooding the room with painfully bright sunlight. What the hell? Physical therapy starts in 30 minutes. We need to get you bathed, dressed, and fed before then. Naomi moved with military efficiency, laying out clothes, preparing supplies. I don't take orders from. Yes, you do. For now. Naomi turned to face him fully. Look, I get it. You're used to being in control. Calling the shots. Having people jump when you snap your fingers. But that version of your life is over. This is your new reality, and in this reality, I'm the one with the knowledge and experience to keep you alive. So you can either accept that and work with me, or you can fight me every step and make this 10 times harder on yourself. Jin-Ho wanted to argue, wanted to tell her where she could shove her cheerful tyranny, but something in her expression, expectant, challenging, utterly unimpressed by his wealth or status, made him swallow his protests. Why are you doing this? He asked instead. You could work anywhere. Help anyone. Why sign up to deal with someone like me? Naomi paused, something flickering across her face, pain quickly masked. Because 3 years ago, I was the one in the hospital bed. Car accident. Broke my back, both legs, fractured my skull. Doctors said I'd never walk again. Jin-Ho stared. But you. I walk now. With a slight limp when I'm tired, but I walk. She met his eyes. Someone helped me when I wanted to give up. A physical therapist named Marcus who refused to let me quit. He died 2 years ago. Heart attack. And before he died, he made me promise something. What? That I'd pay it forward. That I'd find people at their lowest, and remind them they're stronger than they think. Naomi's voice softened slightly. So that's what I'm doing. Keeping my promise to the man who saved my life. The revelation shifted something in Jin-Ho's chest. Naomi wasn't just some hired caregiver going through the motions. She understood. She'd been here. I'm sorry, he said quietly. About Marcus. Me too. But he'd be pissed if I let grief stop me from doing the work. Naomi's expression hardened again. So, are we doing this, or are we wasting time? Jin-Ho nodded slowly. We're doing this. Bathing was humiliating. Someone else washing his body, handling him like a child. Jin-Ho kept his eyes fixed on the ceiling, jaw clenched, trying to preserve some shred of dignity. You're tensing up, Naomi observed. Relax. This is medical care, not a judgment. Easy for you to say. Jin-Ho bit out. You're not the one being treated like an infant. No, I'm the one making sure you don't develop infections or bed sores that could kill you. Her hands were gentle but firm, professional. And for the record? When I was recovering, I had a male nurse named Derek who had to do this for me. Every single day. You know what I learned? What? That dignity isn't about what's being done to your body. It's about how you handle it. You can lie here feeling sorry for yourself, or you can accept that this is temporary, necessary, and nothing to be ashamed of. Naomi's eyes met his. Your choice. By the time they reached physical therapy, Jin-Ho was exhausted. The therapist, a cheerful woman named Dr. Song, greeted them with the kind of relentless optimism that made Jin-Ho want to scream. Let's see what we're working with. She positioned Jin-Ho's leg, testing reflexes. Nothing. Tested the other leg. Still nothing. Her smile never wavered. Okay, we're starting from baseline. But that's fine. Every journey begins somewhere. How long until I walk again? Jin-Ho demanded. Dr. Song's pause was infinitesimal, but he caught it. Everyone's recovery is different. Some patients regain partial mobility within months. Others. How long for me? The therapist glanced at Naomi, who nodded slightly. Permission to be honest. Your injury severed several neural pathways, Dr. Song said carefully. Complete recovery is unlikely, but we can work toward improving upper body strength, wheelchair mobility, and potentially some sensation in your lower extremities. There have been cases where patients with similar injuries. Just say it, Jin-Ho interrupted, voice flat. I am permanently paralyzed. We don't know what permanent means yet, Naomi interjected. Medicine evolves. Therapies improve. But even if your legs never work the same way, you're not helpless. You're just different. Jin-Ho laughed, a harsh broken sound. Different. That's one way to put it. Would you prefer broken? Useless? Finished? Naomi's voice sharpened. Because I can stand here and agree with you if that's what you want. Tell you you're right, you're done, might as well give up. Or what? Or you can stop feeling sorry for yourself and start doing the work. The words hit like a slap. Dr. Song looked uncomfortable, clearly unused to such bluntness with patients. But Jin-Ho felt something ignite in his chest. You don't get to talk to me like that, he said, voice low and dangerous. I just did, Naomi replied calmly. And I'll keep doing it until you start showing up for yourself instead of waiting for everyone else to fix you. They glared at each other. The tension in the room was suffocating. Then slowly Jin-Ho nodded. Okay, he said. Let's start. The session was torture. Dr. Song manipulated his lifeless legs through exercises that felt pointless. Naomi watched with hawk-like attention, correcting his posture, pushing him when he wanted to quit. Sweat poured down his face. His arms trembled. Every muscle screamed. 5 more reps, Dr. Song encouraged. I can't. You can, Naomi said firmly. And you will. Jin-Ho wanted to throw something at her. But he also respected her? Maybe. Or maybe he was just too exhausted to argue. He completed the reps. Barely. By the end, he was drenched in sweat, trembling with exhaustion. Excellent work today, Dr. Song chirped. Same time tomorrow. Jin-Ho wanted to tell her to go to hell, but he was too tired. Back in his room, Naomi helped him transfer from wheelchair to bed. His arms shook with the effort. Once upon a time he'd done pull-ups for fun. Now he could barely lift his own weight. I hate this, he whispered. I hate all of it. Before Naomi could respond, a voice from the doorway interrupted. Still complaining, I see. Some things never change. Jin-Ho's head snapped up. Standing in the doorway was a man he hadn't seen in 5 years, his older brother Jin-Woo. What are you doing here? Jin-Ho asked, shock overriding exhaustion. Jin-Woo stepped into the room, expensive suit, cold expression. I heard about the accident. And the divorce. Came to see if the rumors were true. And they are. You're actually paralyzed. Jin-Woo's tone was clinical, assessing. How much did hygiene take? Why do you care? Jin-Ho's voice was bitter. We haven't spoken since you stole my business idea and built an empire on it, Jin-Woo finished. Yeah, I remember. Naomi stepped forward, protective instinct activated. I think it's time for you to leave. Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to her, dismissive. And you are his caregiver, which means I decide who gets to stress him out. How touching. My brother, reduced to needing a babysitter. Jin-Woo turned back to Jin-Ho. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to make an offer. I don't want anything from you. Not even 50% ownership of your company back? Because I bought out Min-jae's shares. And the others. I now control your former empire. Jin-Woo smiled, sharp, calculated. And I'm willing to return it. For a price. Jin-Ho felt like the floor had dropped out. You what? Someone had to keep the vultures from picking the corpse clean. I figured it might as well be family. Jin-Woo pulled out a contract. Here's the deal. You sign over all decision-making authority to me for the next 2 years. In exchange, I'll manage the company, protect your assets, and return control once you're functional again. If you ever are. That's insane. That's survival, Jin-Woo interrupted. Right now you're vulnerable. Weak. Every creditor, every competitor, every opportunist is circling. You need protection. I'm offering it. In exchange for total control, Naomi said flatly. That's not protection. That's a hostile takeover. Jin-Woo's smile didn't reach his eyes. Call it what you want. The offer expires in 72 hours. After that, I sell everything and you get nothing. He dropped the contract on the bed and walked out, leaving Jin-Ho reeling. He's bluffing, Naomi said immediately. He has to be. He's not, Jin-Ho whispered. Jin-Woo doesn't bluff. If he says he bought the company, he did. And if he says he'll sell it. He pressed his palms against his eyes. I'm trapped. Again. Naomi sat beside him thinking. What if there's another option? There isn't. What if we fight for the company? Prove you're competent to run it even from a wheelchair? Jin-Ho laughed bitterly. With what? I can barely feed myself. How am I supposed to convince anyone I can run a multi-million-dollar company? The same way you're going to convince them you can walk again, Naomi said firmly. One impossible step at a time. That afternoon, the hospital social worker visited. A thin woman with kind eyes and terrible news. Mr. Kim, we need to discuss your discharge plan. Insurance will only cover another 2 weeks of inpatient care. After that, you'll need to transition to outpatient therapy or a long-term care facility. Long-term care facility, Jin-Ho repeated numbly. You mean a nursing home? A rehabilitation center, the social worker corrected gently, where you can continue therapy while rotting away with other people society has given up on, Jin-Ho finished bitterly. The social worker's expression was sympathetic but firm. Do you have family who can take you in? Friends? Any support system? Jin-Ho thought of his parents, back in Korea, aging, barely able to care for themselves. His brother, who'd just offered a devil's bargain. His friends, who'd already proven their loyalty was conditional. No, he said quietly. I have no one. He has me, Naomi said from the doorway. Both Jin-Ho and the social worker turned to stare at her. I'm his private caregiver. I'll be accompanying him wherever he goes. The social worker looked doubtful. Private care is expensive, Mr. Kim. Do you have the funds? I'll manage, Jin-Ho interrupted, though he had no idea if that was true. Between hygiene's theft, the business buyout, and medical bills, his finances were a disaster. After the social worker left, Jin-Ho turned to Naomi. You can't actually follow me to some depressing nursing home. You have your own life. My life is fine, Naomi said simply. And you need help beyond what a facility can provide. Why? The question burst out of Jin-Ho before he could stop it. Why do you actually care? You barely know me. I'm rude, difficult, and I have nothing to offer you except. Except what? Naomi challenged. Money? Status? I don't need either. What you don't understand, Jin-Ho, is that I'm not here because of what you can give me. I'm here because I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And what's that? A fighter. Someone who's been knocked down but isn't actually out. Not yet. She crossed her arms. But if you want me to leave, say it. Tell me right now you want to face this alone, and I'll walk away. No judgment. Jin-Ho opened his mouth. The words should have been easy. He'd spent his whole life handling things alone, trusting no one, relying on himself. But looking at Naomi, this woman who'd known him less than a week, but somehow saw past the paralysis and bitterness to something worth fighting for. The words wouldn't come. Stay, he whispered. Please. Naomi's expression softened. Okay. Then we do this together. All of it. That night, Jin-Ho dreamed of the accident for the first time since waking. The screech of tires. The sickening crunch of metal. The moment of impact when the world went sideways and his body betrayed him. He woke gasping, drenched in sweat, phantom pain screaming through legs that couldn't feel. Naomi appeared in the doorway almost instantly. Nightmare. Jin-Ho nodded, not trusting his voice. She crossed the room, sitting on the edge of his bed. Want to talk about it? What's there to say? I relived the worst moment of my life. Again. Does it get easier? He whispered. The nightmares. Eventually, Naomi said. But not if you fight them alone. When I was recovering, I had nightmares for months. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back in that car, feeling the impact, hearing the sound of my own bones breaking. She took his hand. What helped was talking about it, making it less powerful by dragging it into the light. I don't want to talk about it. Then don't. But I'm here when you do. The simple offer, no pressure, no judgment, just presence, cracked something open in Jin-Ho's chest. Thank you, he managed. Naomi squeezed his hand. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be hard. She was right. The next few days established a brutal routine. Early wake-ups. Excruciating physical therapy. Meals he could barely stomach. Jin-Ho pushed himself harder than the therapist recommended. Desperate to prove he could recover, that his brother's offer was unnecessary, that he wasn't finished. Then on day 4 disaster struck. During a particularly aggressive therapy session, Jin-Ho tried to put weight on his legs with the parallel bars. Dr. Song had warned him it was too soon, but he insisted. He needed to feel his legs work. Needed proof that he wasn't permanently broken. He shifted his weight. For one glorious second, he felt his right leg take some pressure. Then it gave out completely. Jin-Ho crashed forward, smashing his face against the parallel bar. Blood exploded from his nose. Pain detonated through his skull. He crumpled to the mat, barely conscious, tasting copper. Jin-Ho. Naomi's voice, sharp with fear. Hands on him. People shouting. The world spinning. When he woke, he was back in his hospital bed. Nose bandaged. Head pounding. And worst of all, Dr. Song standing beside him with a grave expression. Mr. Kim, I need to be direct with you, she said. What you did today was dangerous and counterproductive. You're not ready for weight-bearing exercises. Pushing too hard too fast doesn't speed recovery, it causes setbacks. I felt my leg. You felt a reflex. Not voluntary movement. There's a difference. Dr. Song's tone was firm. If you keep trying to rush this, you're going to seriously injure yourself. Possibly permanently. The words hit like a hammer. Jin-Ho had been so desperate to prove everyone wrong that he'd sabotaged himself. How long? He asked quietly. Until I can actually try again? Minimum 6 weeks. And that's if you follow protocols exactly. 6 weeks. Might as well be 6 years. After Dr. Song left, Jin-Ho lay in silence, staring at the ceiling. Naomi sat in the corner, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Go ahead, Jin-Ho said bitterly. Say it. Say what? I told you so. You warned me to be patient, to trust the process. And I didn't listen. Naomi was quiet for a long moment. You want to know what I'm actually thinking? Sure. I'm thinking you're terrified. And when you're terrified, you make stupid decisions trying to control things you can't control. She stood, crossing to his bed. I'm also thinking that fall probably scared you more than any lecture I could give. So instead of rubbing it in, I'm going to ask, what did you learn? Jin-Ho swallowed hard. That I can't force this. That healing has its own timeline. And that I need to trust people who actually know what they're doing, instead of thinking I know better. Naomi nodded. Good. Because if you pull that stunt again, I'm not just going to yell at you. I'm going to let you fail. Completely. And then you'll see what rock bottom actually looks like. The threat should have made him angry. Instead, Jin-Ho felt relieved. Because Naomi wasn't coddling him. Wasn't treating him like fragile glass. She was holding him accountable. Expecting better. I won't, he promised. Pull that stunt again, I mean. Good. Now rest. You rattled your brain pretty good. The next day brought another complication Jin-Ho hadn't anticipated. Hyejine's mother. Mrs. Choi arrived at the rehabilitation center like a storm. Designer clothes, expensive perfume. Face painted with concern that didn't reach her calculating eyes. Jin-Ho, she began, voice saccharine. I'm so worried about you. Hygiene told me everything. How confused you've been, how this woman has been influencing you. Naomi stiffened beside him, but Jin-Ho raised a hand. He'd handle this. Mrs. Choi, with all due respect, your daughter abandoned me while I was unconscious. She stole my assets and filed for divorce before I could even feel my legs. Now she wants conservatorship? That's not concern. That's control. Mrs. Choi's mask slipped for just a second, revealing cold calculation underneath. You're not thinking clearly. The medication, the trauma. I'm thinking perfectly clearly, Jin-Ho interrupted. Clear enough to know when I'm being manipulated. How dare you? Mrs. Choi started, but Naomi stood, physically positioning herself between them. This visit is over, Naomi said, voice like ice. Mrs. Choi's eyes narrowed, focusing on Naomi with undisguised venom. And who exactly are you? Some opportunist who saw a vulnerable man and smelled easy money. I'm the person who stayed. Naomi cut her off. While your daughter was clearing out his apartment and signing divorce papers. While his friends abandoned him. While people like you pretended he didn't exist. I stayed. So don't you dare question my intentions. You're after his money. What money? Naomi's laugh was sharp. His wife stole it. His business partners are buying him out for pennies. His brother is holding his company hostage. There is no money. There's just a man trying to survive the worst moment of his life. And I'm helping him because it's the right thing to do. Not everything is a transaction, Mrs. Choi. The older woman's face flushed with rage, but she clearly recognized she'd lost this battle. Hygiene will hear about this, she hissed, gathering her purse. And trust me, this isn't over. After she left, Jin-Ho exhaled shakily. That was just the beginning. Naomi finished grimly. They're going to throw everything at us. We need to be ready. That evening, unable to sleep, Jin-Ho found Naomi in the common area, staring out the window at the city lights. Can't sleep either? He asked, wheeling closer. She glanced at him, surprised. Thought you'd be exhausted after today. Too angry to sleep. He positioned himself beside her. Thank you for standing up to Mrs. Choi. She had it coming. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Jin-Ho asked the question that had been nagging him. You said you had a car accident 3 years ago. What happened? If you don't mind me asking. Naomi was quiet for so long Jin-Ho thought she wouldn't answer. Then, quietly. I was driving home from a double shift at the hospital. Exhausted. It was raining. A truck ran a red light and T-boned my car on the driver's side. Crushed the entire left half of my body. Jin-Ho winced. God. I was in a coma for 2 weeks. When I woke up, they told me I'd never walk again. Both legs shattered. Spinal damage. Traumatic brain injury. Her voice was steady, but Jin-Ho heard the tremor underneath. My boyfriend at the time, fiancé, actually visited once. Saw me in the ICU hooked up to machines and just left. Didn't even break up with me to my face. Just stopped coming. Stopped answering calls. Naomi, I'm so sorry. I'm not telling you for sympathy, she interrupted. I'm telling you so you understand why I'm here. Because I know exactly what you're feeling. The rage at your body for betraying you. The humiliation of needing help with basic tasks. The terror that everyone sees you as broken. The crushing loneliness when people you trusted disappear. How did you survive it? Marcus, my physical therapist. He was relentless, demanding, and refused to let me quit even when I begged him to. He saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. Strength I didn't know I had. Naomi's eyes glistened. He died before I could repay him. So now I do it for others. I find people at their lowest and remind them they're fighters. That's my purpose. Jin-Ho reached for her hand. You're incredible. You know that. Naomi smiled sadly. I'm just keeping a promise to someone I loved. But thank you. The moment stretched between them. Not romantic, not yet, but something deeper. Recognition. Understanding. Two people who'd been broken finding solace in shared scars. Then Jin-Ho's phone rang, shattering the peace. It was Attorney Park. And the news made Jin-Ho's blood run cold. Jin-Ho, we have a problem, Park said without preamble. Jin is filing for conservatorship. She's claiming you're mentally incompetent to manage your own affairs due to trauma and medication. If she wins, she'll control everything. Your assets, your medical decisions, your entire life. Jin-Ho's hand clenched around the phone so hard he thought it might shatter. She abandoned me. And now she wants to control me. She's arguing she panicked initially but has since reconsidered and wants to fulfill her wifely duties, Park said, disgust evident in his tone. It's transparent as hell, but legally she has standing. And with your brother controlling your company, her lawyers are going to argue you're being taken advantage of from all sides. How do I fight this? You need to prove you're competent, lucid, capable of making decisions. Which means we need medical evaluations, psychological assessments, witness testimony, and Park hesitated. We need to address your relationship with Naomi. What about it? Jin's team is going to use it against you. They'll argue you've developed an inappropriate dependency on your caregiver, that you're making emotional rather than rational decisions, that you're vulnerable to manipulation. Jin-Ho looked at Naomi, who'd been listening on speaker. Her expression was carefully neutral. So what do we do? Jin-Ho asked. We fight, Park said. But it's going to get ugly. She's going to dig up everything. Your mental state, your relationships, your finances. Everything. You need to be prepared for warfare. After hanging up, Jin-Ho sat frozen. Naomi found him like that, staring at nothing, jaw clenched so tight it ached. Talk to me, she said gently. He told her. Everything. Jin's legal maneuver. The conservatorship threat. The fact that their relationship, whatever it was becoming, would be used as evidence against him. Maybe. Naomi started, then stopped. Maybe what? Maybe I should step back. Professionally. Become less involved so they can't use us against you. No. The word came out fierce, automatic. I need you. Not just as a caregiver. As. He struggled to find the words. As someone who sees me. Really sees me. If you step back, Jin wins. And I'd rather lose everything than give her that satisfaction. Naomi's eyes searched his face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She nodded slowly. Okay. Then we fight. Together. And we show them exactly how strong you are. Jin-Ho managed a smile. Together. I like the sound of that. But as he lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, Jin-Ho realized the true war was just beginning. Jin wasn't just trying to control his assets. She was trying to control his entire existence. To reduce him to an incompetent invalid who needed her protection. And the worst part? Part of him wondered if she was right. Was he incompetent? Was his growing attachment to Naomi real? Or just desperation for someone who didn't abandon him? The doubt gnawed at him like acid. In the darkness, Naomi's earlier words echoed. Healing has its own timeline. Jin-Ho hoped that timeline would move fast enough to save him from the coming storm. Because Jin was just getting started. And she played for keeps. The war began with paperwork and ended with blood. Mountains of legal documents. Medical evaluations. Cognitive assessments. Financial audits. Every aspect of Jin-Ho's life dissected under legal microscopes, searching for proof of incompetence. His lawyer, Attorney Park, was a shark in a suit, expensive, ruthless, and exactly what Jin-Ho needed. Jin's legal team is exceptional, Park admitted during their first strategy meeting. They're painting you as a trauma victim unable to make sound decisions. They're going to argue that your relationship with Naomi is proof of impaired judgment. That you're latching on to the first person who showed you kindness. Our relationship? Jin-Ho's blood pressure spiked. Are you? Park interrupted, eyes sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, you two look at each other like drowning people who found the same piece of driftwood. And that's fine, human even, But Hygiene's lawyers are going to twist it into something predatory. The words hung heavy. Jin-Ho glanced at Naomi, who sat rigid beside him. What we are or aren't doesn't change my competency, Jin-Ho said firmly. In a perfect world, no. But we don't live in one. Park opened his briefcase. We need psychiatric evaluation from an independent doctor, cognitive testing, proof of financial literacy, witness testimony from medical staff, therapists, anyone who can vouch for your mental state. And, he hesitated. We need to prepare for them to attack Naomi. Attack me how? Naomi asked, voice carefully controlled. They'll dig into your background. Look for any hint of impropriety. Past relationships, financial troubles, criminal history. Anything they can use to paint you as manipulative or opportunistic. Naomi's jaw tightened. Let them look. They won't find anything. But Jin-Ho saw the flash of something in her eyes. Fear? No. Something else. A shadow from her past she hadn't shared yet. What is it? He asked after Park left. Nothing. Naomi. I said it's nothing. Her tone cut like glass. We should focus on your evaluation. That's what matters. Jin-Ho wanted to press, but the wall between them was suddenly, inexplicably solid. 48 hours before Jin-Ho's psychiatric evaluation, his brother's deadline arrived. Jin-Woo appeared at the rehabilitation center like a specter. Expensive suit, cold calculation radiating from every pore. He dropped a revised contract on Jin-Ho's lap. Final offer, Jin-Woo said. Sign over decision-making authority for 18 months instead of 2 years. I'll even give you quarterly profit reports. But if you don't sign by midnight tonight, I liquidate everything. The company you're built becomes a memory. Jin-Ho's hands trembled as he read the terms. 18 months of his brother controlling his life's work. It was better than the original offer, but still felt like surrender. Why are you doing this? Jin-Ho asked. If you hate me so much for what happened 5 years ago, why not just destroy everything and walk away? Jin-Woo's expression flickered. Something almost human beneath the ice. Because despite everything, you're still my brother. And watching vultures pick your corpse clean while you're still breathing. He shook his head. Even I'm not that cruel. This is your idea of mercy. This is my idea of survival. You're paralyzed, broke, and fighting a conservatorship battle you might lose. If Hygiene wins, she controls everything anyway. At least with me, there's a chance you get it back. Jin-Woo leaned closer. But I need an answer. Now. Naomi stepped forward. He's not signing anything while preparing for a competency evaluation. It would look like exactly what Hygiene's claiming, that he makes impulsive decisions under pressure. Then he loses the company, Jin-Woo said flatly. Maybe that's acceptable, Naomi countered. Maybe keeping his autonomy matters more than keeping his assets. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed, assessing her. You actually believe that, don't you? That money doesn't matter. I believe people matter more. How noble. Jin-Woo turned back to Jin-Ho. But nobility doesn't pay medical bills. Doesn't fund therapy. Doesn't keep you out of state nursing homes where they warehouse people like you until you die. The words hit like hammer blows. Because Jin-Woo was right. Without money, Jin-Ho's options collapsed to almost nothing. I need time, Jin-Ho said quietly. You have until midnight. After that, the offer evaporates and so does your company. Jin-Woo walked toward the door then paused. For what it's worth. I hope you beat Hygiene. She's a snake. You deserve better than her. After he left, Jin-Ho sat paralyzed, not physically this time but mentally. Every option felt like a trap. What are you thinking? Naomi asked gently. That I'm drowning. And every rope thrown to me has weights attached. Naomi knelt beside his wheelchair. Then maybe you don't grab any of them. Maybe you learn to swim. How? We fight Hygiene. We prove you're competent. And once that's settled, you rebuild from scratch. No brother controlling you. No wife manipulating you. Just you making your own choices. That could take years. I could lose everything in the meantime. You've already lost everything, Naomi said bluntly. Your legs. Your wife. Your company. What you haven't lost is your mind, your will, and your future. Those are worth protecting, even if it means starting over with nothing. Jin-Ho looked at her. This woman who'd appeared in his darkest moment and refused to let him surrender. She was right. Fighting for scraps of his old life meant letting other people control him. But walking away meant freedom. Terrifying, uncertain freedom. I'm not signing, he decided. Naomi smiled. Good. At 11:47 p.m., Jin-Ho called his brother. I'm not signing your contract, he said when Jin-Woo answered. Do whatever you want with the company. I'm done letting other people dictate my life. Silence. Then. You're sure? I've never been more sure. Another pause. You always were stubborn. Good luck with hygiene. You'll need it. The line went dead. Jin-Ho exhaled, feeling simultaneously liberated and terrified. No going back now, Naomi observed. No, Jin-Ho agreed. But at least I'm moving forward on my own terms. The psychiatric evaluation was scheduled for the following week. Dr. Rachel Morrison, a renowned neuropsychologist with a reputation for brutal honesty. Jin-Ho spent days preparing, rehearsing answers, steeling himself. Then 3 days before the evaluation, catastrophe arrived in human form. Jin-Ho was in physical therapy when Naomi suddenly went rigid, staring at the entrance. He followed her gaze and saw a man, tall, handsome, expensive watch, confident smile. The kind of man who'd never known a day of struggle in his life. Naomi, the man called. Is that really you? Naomi's face drained of color. Marcus, what are you doing here? Wait, Marcus? Jin-Ho's mind raced. She'd said Marcus was her physical therapist, the one who'd died. But this man was very much alive. I was visiting a patient in the building and saw your name on the caregiver registry, Marcus said, approaching. His eyes flicked to Jin-Ho dismissively before returning to Naomi. You look amazing. I've been trying to reach you for months. I changed my number, Naomi said, voice tight. I noticed. Marcus's smile was charming, practiced. Look, I know how we ended was complicated, but I've done a lot of growing, a lot of thinking, and I realize I made a mistake. Walking away from you was the worst decision of my life. Jin-Ho felt ice flood his veins. This wasn't her therapist Marcus. This was her ex-fiancé, the one who'd abandoned her after the accident. You need to leave, Naomi said, voice shaking slightly. Just hear me out. She said leave. Jin-Ho interrupted, wheeling forward. You hurt her. Marcus finally acknowledged Jin-Ho's existence. And you are the person she didn't abandon, Jin-Ho said coldly. Unlike you. Marcus's expression flickered, annoyance mixed with calculation. Look, I don't know what Naomi told you about our relationship, but it was complicated. She was in a bad place. I was overwhelmed. She was paralyzed. Jin-Ho's voice rose. And you left. That's not complicated. That's cowardice. Jin-Ho, Naomi said quietly. Don't. Why not? He deserves to hear exactly what kind of person he is. Marcus's charming mask slipped. You don't know anything about our history. I know enough. I know she needed you and you disappeared. I know she built a life without you. And I know you don't get to waltz back in because you suddenly decided you made a mistake. The confrontation drew attention. Dr. Song approached, concerned. Is everything all right here? Everything's fine, Naomi said quickly. Marcus was just leaving. Marcus held up his hands in mock surrender. Okay, I'm going. But Naomi, his voice softened. I meant what I said. I want to make things right. I'll be at the Riverside Hotel for the next week. Room 412. If you want to talk, really talk, you know where to find me. He left, and the silence he left behind was deafening. Naomi's hands trembled. Jin-Ho reached for her, but she pulled away. I need some air, she said, voice hollow. Naomi, wait. But she was already gone, leaving Jin-Ho reeling. She didn't come back for 3 hours. Jin-Ho spent the time in agony, mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if she went to see Marcus? What if the ex-fiancé's reappearance made her question everything? What if Jin-Ho lost the one person who'd stood by him? When Naomi finally returned, Her eyes were red but dry. She'd been crying but was done with tears. I need to tell you something, she said, sitting across from him. About Marcus. The whole truth. Jin-Ho waited, heart pounding. I lied to you, Naomi began. About my physical therapist. His name wasn't Marcus. It was David. David Chun. He died 2 years ago from a heart attack. That part was true. Then who? Marcus Washington was my fiancé. We were together for 4 years. Engaged for 8 months. We were supposed to get married 3 weeks after my accident. Naomi's voice was steady but brittle. When I woke up paralyzed, he visited once. Stood at the foot of my hospital bed, looked at me like I was already dead, and said, I can't do this. Then he left. Blocked my number. Had his lawyer send a formal notice ending our engagement. Jin-Ho felt rage burn through him. Naomi. Let me finish, she interrupted. For 2 years I hated him. Hated myself for loving him. Hated that I'd built my entire future around someone so hollow. Then I met you. And I realized something. What? That I'd conflated 2 people in my story. David, who taught me to fight, and Marcus, who taught me what not to accept. I combined them when I told you about my recovery, because... She swallowed hard. Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I'd loved someone who abandoned me. Ashamed that part of me still wondered if he left because I wasn't worth staying for. That's not true. I know that now. Logically. But emotionally? Seeing him today brought everything back. The humiliation. The betrayal. The fear that maybe I am fundamentally unlovable when things get hard. Jin-Ho wheeled closer, taking her hands. You're not. You're the strongest, most loyal person I've ever met. Marcus is a coward who didn't deserve you. And the fact that he's showing up now, when you've built a life without him, that's not love. That's ego. I know, Naomi whispered. But part of me, a stupid, broken part, wants to hear what he has to say. Wants closure. Or maybe just the satisfaction of telling him exactly what I think of him. Then do it, Jin-Ho said. Go talk to him. Get your closure. I trust you. Naomi's eyes widened. You trust me? Completely. You've earned it 1,000 times over. Jin-Ho squeezed her hands. But promise me one thing. What? Don't let him rewrite history. Don't let him make excuses or manipulate you into thinking his abandonment was anything other than what it was. A choice he made that says everything about him and nothing about your worth. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. How are you so good at this? At seeing people clearly? I'm not. I'm learning. From you. They sat in silence, hands intertwined, the weight of shared trauma and trust binding them. The next evening, Naomi went to the Riverside Hotel. Jin-Ho insisted she take his phone, location sharing enabled. Not because I don't trust you. Because I don't trust him. Marcus's hotel room was exactly what she expected. Expensive, sterile, designed to impress. He opened the door in designer casual wear, smile warm. Naomi, I knew you'd come. Don't, she said, stepping inside. Don't act like this is some romantic reunion. I'm here for one reason. To tell you exactly what your abandonment cost me. Marcus's smile faltered. I deserve that. You deserve worse. But words will have to do. Naomi stayed by the door, refusing to get comfortable. When you left, I didn't just lose my fiancé. I lost my sense of self. I spent months wondering what was wrong with me. Why I wasn't worth staying for. Why my paralysis made me disposable. Naomi, I was scared. Everyone's scared. She cut him off. Life is terrifying. But you don't abandon people you love because you're scared. You fight. You stay. You show up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Marcus had the decency to look ashamed. You're right. I was a coward. And I've regretted it every day since. I don't believe you. It's true. If it were true, you would have reached out years ago. Apologized. Made amends. But you didn't. You only showed up now because you saw me thriving. Saw me with someone else. And your ego couldn't handle that I'd built a life without you. Naomi's voice was ice. This isn't about making things right. This is about you needing to feel like you're still important to me. You're not. Marcus's mask cracked completely. You've clearly moved on. With your patient. How professional is that? More professional than abandoning your fiancée when she's paralyzed. Naomi shot back. Jin-Ho sees me. Really sees me. Not as a caregiver or a fixer or someone to manage his image. As a partner. As an equal. Something you never did. Even before my accident. So that's it? You're just going to walk away? No. I already walked away. 2 years ago. When you forced me to. Naomi moved toward the door. This conversation? This is me closing a chapter you left open. Consider it closed. She left without looking back. Outside, she called Jin-Ho. He answered on the first ring. You okay? He asked immediately. I'm perfect, Naomi said and meant it. Coming home. I'll be waiting. The psychiatric evaluation arrived like Judgment Day. Dr. Rachel Morrison was severe, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor, the kind of person who could spot deception from across a room. She set up in the hospital's private consultation room, recording device activated. Mr. Kim, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, she began. Some will seem simple, others complex. Answer honestly. There are no wrong answers, only truthful ones. For 3 hours she grilled him. Cognitive tests, memory assessments, ethical scenarios, financial decisions. She asked about the accident, about hygiene, about Naomi, about his plans for the future. Tell me about your relationship with your caregiver, Dr. Morrison said eventually. Here it was. The trap. Naomi saved my life, Jin-Ho said carefully. Not just medically but emotionally. When everyone else abandoned me, my wife, my friends, my business partners, she stayed. She challenged me. She refused to let me quit. And you've developed feelings for her? Yes. Dr. Morrison made a note. Some might argue those feelings stem from dependency rather than genuine affection. Some would be wrong, Jin-Ho replied. I'm not confused about what I feel. Naomi and I have been through hell together. We've seen each other at our absolute worst. And what we've built isn't dependency, it's partnership. Mutual respect. Something my marriage never had, even before the accident. Your wife claims she left because she was overwhelmed, that she's since reconsidered and wants to care for you. How does that make you feel? Jin-Ho laughed, sharp, bitter. It makes me feel like she's lying. Hygiene didn't leave because she was overwhelmed. She left because I became inconvenient. And she only wants back in now because she sees an opportunity to control my assets through conservatorship. That's quite an accusation. It's quite a pattern. Would you like to see the financial records showing she'd been stealing from me for months before the accident? Or the evidence of her affair? Or the fact that she literally fled the hospital before I regained consciousness? Dr. Morrison's expression remained neutral, but Jin-Ho saw the flicker of interest. The evaluation continued. By the end, Jin-Ho was exhausted but felt he'd represented himself well. Dr. Morrison gave nothing away. My report will be ready in 1 week, she said. The court will receive it directly. 1 week. 7 days of not knowing whether his entire future would be ripped away. 3 days after the evaluation, Hygiene showed up. Jin-Ho was in his room, reviewing financial documents with Naomi, when the door opened. Hygiene stood there, perfectly dressed, makeup flawless, playing the role of concerned wife. Jin-Ho, she began, voice soft. We need to talk. Privately. Anything you have to say can be said in front of Naomi, Jin-Ho replied flatly. Hygiene's mask flickered. This is between husband and wife. We're not husband and wife. You filed for divorce. Remember? I made a mistake. You made a choice, Jin-Ho interrupted. A calculated, deliberate choice to abandon me at my most vulnerable. And now you want to pretend it was just a momentary lapse in judgment? No. I'm not playing this game. Hygiene's composure cracked slightly. You don't understand what it was like. Watching you in that hospital bed. Knowing you might never walk again. Knowing our entire life was destroyed. Our life wasn't destroyed, Naomi interjected quietly. You're comfortable, easy life was disrupted. There's a difference. Hygiene turned on her, venom barely concealed. You don't get to speak about our marriage. You're just the help who got ideas above her station. I'm the person who stayed when you ran, Naomi replied calmly. And that clearly bothers you more than Jin-Ho's paralysis ever did. How dare? Enough. Jin-Ho cut through the rising voices. Hygiene, leave. Now. Or I'll have security remove you. Hygiene's eyes glistened. Whether genuine tears or performance, Jin-Ho couldn't tell anymore. I'm trying to save you from making a terrible mistake. That woman is using you. That woman has a name. And she's shown me more genuine care in 3 months than you showed in 5 years of marriage. Jin-Ho's voice was steel. This conversation is over. Your lawyer can communicate through mine. For a moment, Hygiene looked genuinely wounded. Then the mask reformed, cold, calculating. You're going to regret this, she said quietly. When the court grants me conservatorship, and you realize you had a chance to reconcile on good terms. You'll remember this moment and wish you'd chosen differently. I already regret something, Jin-Ho replied. I regret not seeing who you really were before I married you. But I'm done making that mistake. After she left, silence filled the room like smoke. That was brutal, Naomi observed. It needed to be. She keeps testing boundaries, seeing if I'll cave. I needed to draw a line. And if she's right? If the court grants conservatorship? Jin-Ho took Naomi's hand. Then we appeal. And we keep fighting. Because I'd rather fight for my freedom and lose than surrender to someone who sees me as property. The report arrived 6 days later, delivered via Attorney Park. She deemed you fully competent, Park said, barely concealing his satisfaction. Cognitively intact, emotionally stable, capable of making independent decisions. Her report is comprehensive and unambiguous. It's a complete vindication. Relief flooded through Jin-Ho so intensely his vision blurred. So the conservatorship will almost certainly be denied. We file this with the court today. Hygiene's case collapses. Jin-Ho looked at Naomi, whose eyes shone with fierce pride and unshed tears. We did it, he whispered. You did it, she corrected. You showed them exactly who you are. But celebration was premature. 2 days later, Hygiene's legal team filed an emergency motion. They claimed Dr. Morrison had been compromised, that Naomi had coached Jin-Ho, that the evaluation was tainted, that a second opinion was necessary. They submitted evidence. Photos of Naomi and Jin-Ho holding hands, sharing meals, their body language suggesting intimacy. They're arguing the relationship itself proves impaired judgment, Park explained, furious. That you're emotionally dependent on Naomi and therefore incapable of objective decision-making. That's insane. It's strategic, Park corrected. And it'll delay the hearing by at least 6 weeks. Maybe more. 6 weeks. 6 more weeks of uncertainty. Of Hygiene's manipulations. Of legal limbo. Jin-Ho felt something inside him snap. Then we go public, he said quietly. What? We take this story public. Show everyone exactly who Hygiene is and what she's doing. No more playing defense. We go on offense. Park looked horrified. That's incredibly risky. If you go public. She's already dragged me through hell privately. At least publicly, I control the narrative. Naomi grabbed his arm. Jin-Ho, think about this. Once you go public, you can't take it back. The scrutiny, the judgment. I'm tired of hiding, Jin-Ho interrupted. Tired of letting her define me as incompetent, as a victim, as someone who needs to be controlled. I want the world to see the truth. Then let's make sure they see all of it, Naomi said slowly. Not just your story, but hers too. Every theft, every lie, every manipulation. Park hesitated, then nodded. If we're doing this, we do it right. I'll prepare a comprehensive statement. Medical records, financial evidence, timeline of events. We leave nothing out. That night, Jin-Ho recorded a video. Raw, honest, unflinching. He detailed the accident, the abandonment, the theft, the conservatorship filing, Hygiene's reappearance and manipulation tactics. He showed scars, physical and emotional. He introduced Naomi, explaining her role, their relationship, the genuine partnership they'd built. I'm not incompetent, he said directly to the camera. I'm healing. And healing is messy, uncertain, and sometimes looks like weakness. But it's not. It's the strongest thing I've ever done. And I won't let someone who abandoned me at my lowest now control me at my highest. The video went live at 8 p.m. on a Thursday. By midnight, it had 50,000 views. By morning, 500,000. News outlets picked it up. Social media exploded. The backlash was immediate and vicious. Public opinion split violently. Team Jin-Ho. She abandoned him paralyzed and now wants his money? Disgusting. This is what a real gold digger looks like. Hygiene, not Naomi. His wife is a monster. I hope he destroys her in court. Team Hygiene. He's clearly being manipulated by his caregiver. This is textbook grooming. A paralyzed man falling for his nurse? That's not love, that's Stockholm Syndrome. She's using him for money and fame. Can't you people see it? But the worst comments targeted Naomi. Black BTCH stealing Korean men. Gold digging rear preying on vulnerable patients. Hope someone puts her down like the animal she is. The racism was vicious, unfiltered, relentless. Jin-Ho watched Naomi's hands shake as she read the messages. Watched the fear she tried to hide behind practice calm. We're going to the police, he said immediately. It's just internet trolls. It's hate speech and death threats. We're reporting every single one. But the police were dismissive. Online harassment is difficult to prosecute, unless there's a credible, specific threat of imminent harm. There are dozens of specific threats. Jin-Ho exploded. The officer shrugged. We'll file a report. But honestly, best thing is to ignore it and increase your security. Ignore it. As if they could ignore messages promising violence. That night, someone found Naomi's address. Posted it online with the caption, "Let's pay the gold digger a visit." Naomi moved into Jin-Ho's room. Not for romance, for survival. This is my fault, Jin-Ho said, guilt crushing his chest. I should never have gone public. Stop, Naomi commanded. This isn't your fault. It's theirs. The people sending threats. The people who see a black woman caring for an Asian man and assume something sinister. This is their ugliness, not yours. I'm still sorry you're going through this. I'm not going anywhere, Naomi said fiercely. Threats or not. You hear me? I'm not Marcus. I don't run when things get hard. The declaration hung in the air between them. A line crossed, a truth acknowledged. Jin-Ho reached for her hand. I love you. I need you to know that. Not as my caregiver. Not out of gratitude or dependence. I love you as a person. As a partner. As someone I want to build a life with. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. Have for weeks. Maybe longer. And I'm terrified of what that means, but I'm more terrified of losing you. They kissed. Desperate, certain, full of fear and promise and defiance against a world trying to tear them apart. While the internet raged, Attorney Park was working behind the scenes. He called 3 days after the video went viral. Jin-Ho, we found something. Something big. What? Financial records showing Hygiene was siphoning money from your joint accounts for 6 months before the accident. Small transfers carefully hidden, building a safety net while you were still healthy and unaware. The betrayal cut deeper than Jin-Ho expected. It was one thing to be abandoned in crisis. Another entirely to realize it had been premeditated. She was planning to leave me anyway, Jin-Ho said, voice hollow. Looks like it. The accident just accelerated her timeline. Park's voice was grim. We're filing this with the court. It destroys her credibility. Shows premeditation, planning, deliberate theft. Will it be enough? To sink the conservatorship case? Almost certainly. To expose her publicly? Absolutely. Jin-Ho thought about Hygiene's performance in his hospital room. The tears. The apologies. All of it calculated theater. Release it, he decided. Let everyone see exactly who she is. The evidence hit social media like a nuclear bomb. Suddenly, Public opinion shifted violently. People who'd defended hygiene scrambled to delete their posts. News outlets ran stories about premeditated spousal abandonment and financial abuse. Hygiene's PR team released a statement claiming the transfers were for household expenses and joint financial planning. But the pattern was damning. Every transfer corresponded with cash withdrawals. No receipts. No paper trail. Just money vanishing into accounts Jin-Ho had never known existed. The court hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, Hygiene's world collapsed. Her social circle abandoned her. Business contacts stopped taking her calls. Even her own mother, Mrs. Choi, distanced herself publicly. Jin-Ho should have felt triumphant. Instead, he felt hollow. "You okay?" Naomi asked one evening, finding him staring out the window. Just thinking about hygiene. How completely her life is unraveling. She did this to herself. I know. But it's still hard to watch someone you once loved destroy themselves, even if they deserve it. Naomi sat beside him. That's what makes you different from her. You still have empathy. She never did. 3 days before the hearing, Jin-Ho received a message from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better." Ush. He showed it to Naomi, who read it skeptically. Could be another manipulation. Maybe. But it feels different. Do you want to respond? Jin-Ho thought about it. Then deleted the message. No, he said. Some bridges need to stay burned. The courtroom was packed. Media representatives. Supporters. Curiosity seekers. Jin-Ho wheeled himself to the plaintiff's table, Naomi beside him, Attorney Park ready for war. Hygiene sat across the aisle, perfectly composed in designer clothes, but Jin-Ho noticed the tremor in her hands. The slight pallor under her makeup. The cracks in her armor. Judge Kim called the proceedings to order. "We're here to determine Mr. Jin-Ho Kim's competency and the validity of Mrs. Hygiene Kim's conservatorship petition." Attorney Kwan, Hygiene's lawyer, went first. He painted Jin-Ho as a trauma victim unable to think clearly, presented the relationship with Naomi as evidence of impaired judgment, called expert witnesses who'd never met Jin-Ho. Then Attorney Park stood. He methodically dismantled every argument, presented Dr. Morrison's evaluation, called hospital staff who testified to Jin-Ho's clarity, showed the financial records proving Hygiene's premeditated theft. Mrs. Kim didn't leave because she was overwhelmed, Park argued. She left because her plan to financially gut her husband was complete. The accident simply accelerated her timeline. And now, seeing him recover without her, she wants control, not out of love or concern, but out of greed and wounded pride. Hygiene's mask finally cracked. That's not true. Mrs. Kim, you'll have your opportunity to testify, Judge Kim said sharply. When Hygiene took the stand, she performed brilliantly. Tears at the right moments. Voice breaking with emotion. Explaining how scared she'd been, how she'd panicked, how she regretted everything. "I love my husband," she said, looking directly at Jin-Ho. "I made terrible mistakes, but I want the chance to make things right. To be there for him. To rebuild what we had." Jin-Ho felt sick. She was good. Dangerously good. Then Attorney Park began cross-examination. "Mrs. Kim, you claim you love your husband. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Then can you explain these bank transfers?" He displayed the financial records. 6 months before the accident. Over $200,000 transferred to accounts in your name only. Hygiene paled. Those were for household. Household expenses paid in cash with no receipts? $200,000. The courtroom erupted. Judge Kim gavelled for order. And this. Park showed messages between Hygiene and her lawyer, dated 2 weeks before the accident, discussing exit strategies and asset protection. Hygiene's composure shattered completely. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly. You were leaving him regardless of the accident. The paralysis just gave you an excuse that made you look like a victim instead of a thief." "That's not, I was scared, I didn't." "You want the truth?" Hygiene suddenly screamed, abandoning all pretense. "Yes. I was leaving him. He was cold, distant, married to his work. I was lonely, isolated. And I deserved better. The accident just made it easier. There, are you happy? I said it. The silence that followed was deafening. Judge Kim's expression was ice. I've heard enough. Mr. Kim is clearly competent. The conservatorship petition is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full financial audit and referring this case to the district attorney for potential fraud charges. Victory. But Jin-Ho felt no triumph. Just exhaustion and profound relief. Outside the courthouse, Hygiene made one final attempt. She approached, mascara streaked, hands shaking. Jin-Ho, please. No, he said quietly. It's over. You're free. Isn't that what you wanted? I wanted a life. Not this. Not public humiliation and criminal charges. You made your choices, Naomi said firmly. Now you live with them. Hygiene looked at Naomi with something almost like envy. Take care of him. He deserves someone who actually sees him. Then she walked away, shoulders shaking, and Jin-Ho knew he'd never see her again. You okay? Naomi asked. I will be, Jin-Ho replied. Eventually. They went home, not to a hospital, but to the small apartment Jin-Ho had managed to rent with his remaining funds. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. That night, they celebrated quietly. No champagne. No parties. Just the two of them, surviving against impossible odds. What happens now? Jin-Ho asked. Naomi took his hand. Now you decide what you want your life to look like. Who you want in it. What matters? I already know, Jin-Ho said. You. This. Us. Building something real. Together, Naomi agreed, kissing him softly. And for the first time since the accident, Jin-Ho felt not just alive, but genuinely hopeful about the future. But the universe had one more test waiting. And this one would force them to confront whether their love was strong enough to survive not just external attacks, but internal demons neither had fully faced. The peace lasted exactly 4 days. Jin-Ho woke to his phone vibrating violently against the nightstand. 3 a.m. Nothing good ever happened at 3 a.m. Naomi stirred beside him. They'd been sharing the apartment's single bedroom for 3 weeks now. Their relationship having evolved from caregiver-patient to something neither could fully name yet. Partners. Lovers. 2 people learning to build a life from ruins. Jin-Ho grabbed the phone. 17 missed calls. All from the same unknown number. What's wrong? Naomi asked, instantly alert. Before he could answer, the phone rang again. He answered. Mr. Kim. A woman's voice, professional, strained. This is Dr. Yoon from Seoul Metropolitan Hospital. I'm calling about Hygiene Kim. She's been admitted. I don't care, Jin-Ho interrupted, moving to hang up. She overdosed. Sleeping pills. Her mother found her unconscious and... The words hit like ice water. Jin-Ho's hand froze. Is she alive? He heard himself ask. Yes. Stable. But Mr. Kim, she's asking for you. And her lawyer is claiming this was triggered by the court outcome. There's media outside the hospital. This is complicated. Jin-Ho hung up. Sat in stunned silence. Jin-Ho. Naomi's voice was careful. What happened? He told her. Everything. The overdose. The hospital. The request. Naomi's expression was unreadable. What do you want to do? I don't know, Jin-Ho admitted. Part of me says this is another manipulation. Another play for sympathy. But what if it's real? What if she actually tried to kill herself because she lost control of you? Naomi's voice was sharp. Jin-Ho, listen to me. Hygiene is an adult who made catastrophic choices. If she's genuinely suicidal, she needs professional help. Not you. You're not responsible for her mental health. I know that. Logically. But you feel guilty anyway, Naomi finished. Because you're a good person. Which is exactly what she's counting on. The words stung because they were true. Jin-Ho's phone lit up again. News alerts. Paralyzed businessman's wife hospitalized after suicide attempt. Conservatorship scandal takes dark turn. Did Jin-Ho Kim drive his wife to despair? His stomach turned. The narrative was already being written. And he was the villain. By morning, the internet had erupted. He publicly humiliated her, and now she's in the hospital. He's a monster. She stole from him while he was paralyzed and you're defending her? Suicide attempt right after losing in court? That's manipulation, not mental health crisis. He replaced his wife with his caregiver and destroyed her. Of course she tried to end it. But the most vicious comments targeted Naomi. That black B*TCH pushed her to this. Blood on her hands. Home-wrecking WH** re-destroyed a marriage and now a life. Someone should do to her what Jin tried to do to herself. Naomi read them in silence, face carefully blank. But Jin-Ho saw the tremor in her hands. We're not going to the hospital, she said quietly. Naomi. I mean it. This is exactly what she wants. You feeling guilty and responsible. Rushing to her bedside while cameras capture. Concerned husband returns to dying wife. It's a trap. What if it's not? What if she's genuinely? Then she gets professional psychiatric care, Naomi interrupted firmly. From doctors. Therapists. People trained to help. Not from her ex-husband who she traumatized and manipulated for months. Jin-Ho wanted to argue. But Naomi was right. Going to that hospital meant stepping back into Jin's web. Attorney Park called an hour later. Don't go to the hospital. Don't make any statements. Jin's lawyer is already positioning this as proof you're unstable, and she was right to seek conservatorship. How can they? She lost the case. Doesn't matter. They're appealing on new grounds. That the stress of the trial and public exposure triggered a mental health crisis, proving her fears about your judgment were valid. Park's voice was grim. It's legally thin, but emotionally compelling. And the court of public opinion doesn't care about evidence. Jin-Ho felt trapped. Damned if he went, damned if he didn't. So what do we do? Nothing. Radio silence. Let her lawyers scramble. Let the media speculate. We don't feed the narrative. After hanging up, Jin-Ho found Naomi standing at the window, arms wrapped around herself. I can't do this, she said quietly. Can't do what? This. Us. Not if it means you're constantly torn between me and guilt over her. Naomi turned to face him, eyes bright with unshed tears. I love you, Jin-Ho. But I won't be the reason you destroy yourself trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved. You're not. I am. Every time Jin pulls a stunt like this, you feel responsible. And I watch you tear yourself apart trying to do the right thing, when there is no right thing. She's made sure of that. Naomi's voice broke. I can't compete with your guilt. And I won't try. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe I should leave. Give you space to figure out what you actually want without me complicating everything. Terror flooded through Jin-Ho. No. Absolutely not. You're not leaving. Jin-Ho. Listen to me. He wheeled forward, grabbing her hands. Jin doesn't get to control my life anymore. Not through guilt, not through manipulation, not through suicide attempts. I'm done letting her dictate my choices. And I choose you. I choose us. I choose building a life that isn't haunted by someone who abandoned me. But the guilt will fade. Eventually. But losing you? That would destroy me more than anything Jin could ever do. Jin-Ho's voice was fierce. You're not leaving. We're facing this together. All of it. Naomi searched his face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She collapsed into his arms, and they held each other like drowning people clinging to the same piece of wreckage. 3 days later, a stranger appeared at Jin-Ho's door. Young woman, nervous energy radiating from her like heat. The same woman who'd exposed Jin's affair months ago. Mr. Kim, she said breathlessly. I need to talk to you. About Jin's overdose. It's not what you think. Jin-Ho let her in, skeptical but curious. Naomi hovered protectively. What do you mean? Pulled out her phone, hands shaking. I was visiting Jin's mother yesterday. Mrs. Choi was on the phone with Jin's lawyer. I overheard something I wasn't supposed to. She played a recording. Mrs. Choi's voice clear and cold. The overdose worked perfectly. Sympathy is shifting our way. We need to capitalize on this before. Before what? The lawyer's voice. Before anyone questions whether it was genuine. The pills were carefully measured. Enough to require hospitalization, not enough to actually be dangerous. Jin-Ho felt his blood freeze. She faked it. Naomi's voice was ice. Not entirely. She did take pills. But it was calculated. Controlled. Done specifically to manipulate public opinion and give her lawyers grounds for appeal. Soare's eyes were fierce. I recorded this because I'm done watching her destroy people. You deserve the truth. After Soare left, Jin-Ho sat in stunned silence. The betrayal was so complete, so calculating, that he almost couldn't process it. We take this to Park, Naomi said immediately. We expose her. Completely. No, Jin-Ho said quietly. What? Jin-Ho, this proves. It proves she's desperate and broken. But releasing this publicly. He shook his head. It makes us look vindictive. And honestly, I'm tired. Tired of fighting her. Tired of letting her occupy space in my life. I just want it to be over. So we do nothing? We give the recording to Park. He uses it with the court to shut down the appeal. But we don't go public. We don't give her more ammunition for her victim narrative. Jin-Ho took Naomi's hands. We move on. Build our life. And let her fade into irrelevance. Naomi studied him. You've changed. The man I met 3 months ago would have wanted revenge. The man you met 3 months ago was drowning in anger. You taught me there's strength in letting go. She kissed him softly. I'm proud of you. Attorney Park took the recording and filed it with the court under seal. The appeal was quietly dismissed. Media attention began to fade. Life started to feel almost normal. Then Naomi's phone rang. She answered, face draining of color. Listened for 30 seconds. Hung up. What's wrong? Jin-Ho asked immediately. That was the hospital. My mom had a stroke. Naomi's voice broke. She's not doing well. I need to go to Chicago. Now. I'm coming with you. Jin-Ho, you can't just. Yes, I can. You've been here for every crisis in my life. I'm not letting you face this alone. The flight is 6 hours. The accessibility accommodations. We'll figure it out. Together. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. You're sure? Book the flights. I'm going. The trip was grueling. Airport accessibility was a nightmare. Delayed assistance, broken equipment, staff who treated Jin-Ho like an inconvenience. But Naomi navigated it all with the same fierce competence she brought to everything. On the plane, Jin-Ho watched her stare out the window, tension radiating from every muscle. Talk to me, he said quietly. I haven't seen my mom in 2 years, Naomi admitted. We had a fight when I told her I was staying in California to do caregiving work instead of finishing my nursing degree. She said I was wasting my potential. That Marcus leaving had broken something in me, and I was hiding instead of healing. Was she right? Naomi was quiet for a long time. Maybe. At first. But then I met you. And I realized I wasn't hiding. I was finding purpose. There's a difference. The hospital in Chicago was chaos. Naomi's family crowded the waiting room. Mother unconscious in ICU, father aged and frail, younger sister Keisha who looked at Jin-Ho with undisguised suspicion. So you're the patient, Keisha said bluntly. The one Naomi abandoned her education for. Keisha, Naomi started. No, it's fine, Jin-Ho interrupted. You're right to be protective. But I'm not her patient anymore. I'm her partner. And I'm here because she needs support, just like she's given me. Keisha's expression softened slightly. Mom's going to pull through. She's stubborn. Like Naomi. Over the next 3 days, Jin-Ho watched Naomi manage the crisis with incredible strength. Coordinating with doctors, supporting her father, mediating family tensions. But late at night, when everyone else was asleep, she would break down. What if she dies? Naomi whispered one night. What if the last conversation we had was a fight? What if she never knew how much she meant to me? Then we make sure that's not the last thing she hears, Jin-Ho said firmly. When she wakes up, and she will, you tell her everything. For days later, Naomi's mother regained consciousness. Weak, confused, but alive. Naomi sat beside her bed, holding her hand. Mom, I'm so sorry. For the fight. For the distance. For everything. Her mother squeezed weakly. You were right. To find your purpose. I was scared for you. But I see it now. You're strong. Stronger than I gave you credit for. They cried together. Two strong women who'd forgotten how to be vulnerable with each other. Jin-Ho watched from the doorway, giving them space, and felt something shift in his chest. This was what love looked like. Not grand gestures or perfect moments, but showing up, being present, fighting through fear and pride to connect. 2 weeks after returning from Chicago, Jin-Ho had his 6-month post-accident evaluation. Dr. Song ran him through comprehensive testing, range of motion, nerve response, muscle control. Then, unexpectedly, I want to try something. With the parallel bars. Jin-Ho's stomach clenched. The last time he'd tried this, he'd smashed his face and set recovery back weeks. I'm not ready. You are. Trust me. Dr. Song positioned him carefully. We're not talking about walking across the room. Just standing. Bearing your own weight. For 5 seconds. Naomi stood nearby, ready to catch him if he fell. Jin-Ho gripped the bars. Took a breath. Pushed. His legs trembled. Muscles screamed. For one terrible second, he thought they'd give out completely. Then impossibly miraculously. They held. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Jin-Ho, you're standing, Naomi whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm standing, he repeated, awed. 20 seconds. His legs began to shake violently. Dr. Song helped him back into the wheelchair, but the triumph was absolute. That's the first real progress toward independent mobility, Dr. Song said, beaming. With continued therapy, you might regain partial walking ability, with a walker or cane for support. Might. The word was cautious. But it was hope. That night, Jin-Ho couldn't sleep. The possibility of walking, even assisted, felt like a door opening to a future he'd mourned as lost. What are you thinking? Naomi asked, finding him on the apartment balcony. That I might walk again. Not run marathons or climb mountains. But walk. Stand at my own wedding. Dance with my... He stopped, realizing what he'd almost said. Dance with your what? Naomi's smile was knowing. Jin-Ho took her hand. Naomi Carter, I don't have a ring. I don't have the company I once built or the wealth I used to have. I can barely stand for 20 seconds without shaking. But I love you with everything I am. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving it. Naomi's breath caught. Jin-Ho. Will you marry me? She laughed through tears. You're proposing without a ring on our tiny balcony? I'm proposing with the only thing I have left that's worth anything, my heart. Completely, irrevocably yours. Then yes. God, yes. 1,000 times yes. They kissed as the city lights flickered below. Two people who'd survived betrayal, paralysis, public humiliation, and threats, and somehow found each other through it all. The wedding was planned for 3 months later. Small, intimate, just close friends and family. Then 2 weeks before the ceremony, a letter arrived. Handwritten. Postmarked from Singapore. Jin-Ho's hands shook as he opened it. Jin-Ho. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking for reconciliation. That ship sailed the moment I abandoned you. I'm writing because I owe you the full truth. Not the version I told the court or the media. The real truth. I was having an affair. For over a year. With a man named Taehyun. I was planning to leave you regardless of the accident. The paralysis just gave me an excuse that made me look like the victim instead of the villain. I stole from you. Systematically, deliberately, over months. I manipulated you. I tried to control you through conservatorship when you proved you didn't need me. And when I lost, I staged a suicide attempt. Not because I couldn't live without you, but because I couldn't handle being seen for who I really am. A coward. A thief. A person who values comfort over integrity. The affair ended badly. Taehyun left me when my money dried up. Turns out he was exactly like me. Opportunistic, shallow, interested only in what I could provide. Poetic, I suppose. I'm in Singapore now, working for my uncle's company. Starting over. Trying to become someone I don't hate when I look in the mirror. I don't know if I'll succeed, but I have to try. You deserved better than me. You always did. And I'm glad you found it in Naomi. Seeing your engagement announcement made me realize something I'd never understood. I never actually knew what love looked like. I knew possession, control, transaction, but not love. You and Naomi? That's love. Real, earned, built through fire. I envy that. Not because I want you back, I don't, and you wouldn't take me even if I begged, but because I wonder if I'll ever be capable of that kind of connection. I hope you can think of me someday without anger. Not with fondness. I don't deserve that, but maybe with indifference. That would be enough. I'm sorry. For all of it. I hope you're happy. You've earned it. Hygiene. Jin-Ho read the letter 3 times. Each time, he felt something shift in his chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but release. The final severing of a cord that had kept him tethered to resentment. What do you think? He asked, showing Naomi. She read it carefully. I think she's finally being honest. Maybe for the first time in her life. Does it change anything? For you? Maybe. It gives you closure. Naomi folded the letter. For me? I hope she finds peace. I hope she becomes someone she can respect. But I don't need to know her to be happy. We built our life without her. We don't need her blessing or her apology to move forward. Jin-Ho placed the letter in a drawer. Not to revisit. Just to acknowledge it existed. You're right, he said. She's not our story anymore. She's just someone I used to know who made terrible choices. And I'm done carrying her mistakes. The wedding day arrived warm and clear. Small ceremony at a garden venue. 20 guests. No media. No spectacle. Just love, witnessed and celebrated. Jin-Ho wore a suit he'd chosen himself. Naomi had helped him dress, but he'd insisted on standing, with a walker, for the ceremony. You don't have to, she'd said. No one expects. I expect it. From myself. I'm standing when I marry you. Even if it's just for 10 minutes. When Naomi walked down the aisle, radiant in a simple white dress, eyes locked on his, Jin-Ho felt everything else fade away. The accident. The betrayal. The battles. None of it mattered anymore. What mattered was this moment. This woman. This choice. The officiant began. Were gathered to witness the union of Jin-Ho Kim and Naomi Carter. 2 people who found each other in darkness, and chose to build something beautiful from the wreckage. Jin-Ho barely heard the words. He was too focused on Naomi, on the way she smiled at him like he was the only person in the world, on the absolute certainty that this was what his life had been leading toward. Jin-Ho, do you take Naomi to be your lawfully wedded wife? Ido. His voice was clear, strong, unwavering. Naomi, do you take Jin-Ho to be your lawfully wedded husband? Ido. I now pronounce you husband and wife. They kissed as their friends cheered. Jin-Ho stood for 12 minutes before his legs began to shake. Naomi helped him back into the wheelchair, but the triumph was absolute. He'd stood for their wedding. On his own 2 feet. Exactly as he'd promised. The reception was small, joyful, filled with laughter and stories and hope. Jin-Ho's physical therapist gave a toast about resilience. Naomi's sister admitted she'd been wrong about Jin-Ho. Attorney Park made everyone cry with a speech about fighting for the people you love. As the evening wound down, Jin-Ho and Naomi stood alone on the garden terrace, watching stars emerge. So, Naomi said, leaning against him, how does it feel, being married? Like coming home after being lost for years, Jin-Ho admitted. Like every terrible thing that happened was necessary to get me here. To you. You don't regret anything? I regret the pain, the betrayal, the time wasted. But those things led me to you. So how can I regret the path that brought me the best thing in my life? Naomi's eyes glistened. You know what I realized today? What? That we didn't just survive. We built something beautiful from survival. A life. A partnership. A love that's not perfect, but it's real. And it's ours. Jin-Ho pulled her close. Ours. I like the sound of that. The rehabilitation center opened on a crisp autumn morning. Jin-Ho and Naomi stood at the entrance. The Phoenix Center, Recovery, Resilience, Renewal, watching patients arrive for the grand opening. They'd spent 6 months building it. Fundraising. Planning. Hiring staff committed to treating patients as whole people, not broken bodies. Creating programs modeled after Jin-Ho's own recovery journey. Free services for those who couldn't afford care. Support groups for families. Adaptive technology. Mental health counseling integrated with physical therapy. Everything Jin-Ho had needed, but struggled to find. This is incredible, Naomi whispered, watching a young woman in a wheelchair navigate through the accessible entrance, her face lighting up at the welcoming environment. It's just the beginning, Jin-Ho replied. But it's ours. We built this. A reporter approached. They'd agreed to one interview, carefully controlled. Mr. Kim, how does it feel to open this center after everything you've been through? Jin-Ho thought carefully. A year ago, I woke up paralyzed and abandoned. I thought my life was over. I genuinely believed I had nothing left worth living for. And then he looked at Naomi. Someone showed up who refused to let me quit. Who saw strength in me I couldn't see in myself. Who taught me that healing isn't about returning to who you were, but becoming someone stronger. And your ex-wife? Any comment on her recent statement from Singapore? I wish her well, Jin-Ho said honestly. I hope she finds peace and builds a life she's proud of. But she's not part of my story anymore. My story is about this. He gestured at the center. About the people we'll help, the lives will change, the hope we'll provide to people who think they have none left. After the interview, as they toured the facility, Jin-Ho marveled at how far he'd come. He could walk short distances now, with a cane slowly but independently. His upper body was strong. His mind was clear. And most importantly, he'd built a life that wasn't defined by what he'd lost, but by what he'd gained. That evening, they returned to their apartment, larger now, more comfortable but still modest. Jin-Ho didn't need the mansion he'd once owned. Didn't need the luxury car or the expensive suits or the status symbols that had meant everything in his old life. He had Naomi. He had purpose. He had peace. What are you thinking? Naomi asked, finding him on the balcony. That I'm grateful, Jin-Ho said simply. For all of it. The accident that destroyed my old life. The betrayal that forced me to see clearly. The paralysis that taught me real strength. Because without those things, I never would have met you. Never would have built this life. Never would have understood what actually matters. Naomi smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. You know what the best part is? What? This isn't the ending. It's just the beginning. We have decades ahead of us. Decades to build, to love, to help people, to grow old together. She squeezed his hand. And I can't wait for all of it. Jin-Ho kissed her softly. Neither can I. They stood together, watching the city lights flicker to life. Two people who'd been broken and had rebuilt themselves stronger. Not perfect. Not unmarred by scars. But whole in the ways that mattered. Jin-Ho thought about hygiene in Singapore, hopefully finding her own path to redemption. He thought about his brother, who'd eventually reached out to congratulate him on the wedding and the center. He thought about all the people who'd abandoned him when he was at his lowest. And he felt nothing. Not anger. Not resentment. Just indifference. They weren't his story anymore. His story was Naomi's laugh when he made terrible jokes. The patients at the center slowly regaining hope. The quiet mornings making breakfast together. The plans for the future. Maybe kids someday, maybe expanding the center, maybe just growing old and happy. I love you, he said, voice thick with emotion. I love you too, Naomi replied. Always. And in that moment, Jin-Ho knew something with absolute certainty. He'd lost everything. His legs, his wife, his company, his old life. But he'd gained something infinitely more valuable. Himself. And the woman who'd helped him find it. Some things are worth more than legs that work. Like a heart that's finally learned what it means to be whole.